Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Some good news. Both the Ukrainians and the Russians were at work today, and they updated their Ukraine war information on their sites. So today, guess what? You will be lied by both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians. To be more specific, Ukrainska Pravda versus Sputnik. They will give us such information that rarely overlap. It's like the opposite. So let's start with the Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's defense forces advance on two fronts, General Staff report on today, Thursday, July 27th. Over the course of the past day, Ukraine's defense forces continued to conduct offensive operations on the Melitopol and Berdiansk fronts and are consolidating recently captured positions. So this is the Ukrainian main offensive. That's it. This is the front. And I'm going to show you right here. This is the front. This is Zaporozhye. Okay, this is used to be here the reservoir of Zaporozhye. Here is Kakhovka, where the dam was blown up. Here is where the Energodar, the nuclear power plant, Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is. And here is Berdiansk and Melitopol, right here. This is the front. They're trying to break through here in order to cut the Russians in two, north and south. And then probably here trying to get to Crimean Peninsula, while in the meantime trying to destroy the Kerch Bridge, so the Russians are not able, if they are, to bring any troops over there. So this is their main thing right here. The Russians' main thing is right here. So the Russians are advancing here, the Ukrainians are advancing here, according to these weasels. Details. The General Staff reported that Russian occupation forces deployed 2 Kalibr cruise missiles to carry out an attack on Odessa's port infrastructure and launched 8 Shahid attack drones on targets elsewhere in Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force destroyed all 8 Russian attack drones. Can you believe that? No. Russian forces carried out a total of 27 airstrikes over the course of the past day and deployed multiple launch rocket systems in over 30 further attacks on the positions of Ukrainian troops and civilian settlements. There were civilian strala. It is a very high ongoing threat of further Russian missiles and airstrikes across Ukraine. Russia and Ukrainian forces clashed a total of 30 times over the course of today. Alright, so let me show you. Here it is. You got the black dots here. This is where the infantry met, or it is the troops faced one another. The rest are just bombardments, according to the Russians. The blue little dots here, or circles, are Ukrainian shelling of Russian positions. The red ones are Russians returning the favor. The yellow are the Russians downing drones or aircraft. And then you have this attack on the military base, which is the only airfield that carries Sukhoi 24 that is capable of carrying Storm Shadow British missiles. So that is right here. There even attack yesterday. Right here is the airport. I'm going to show you. Here it is. The military base was attacked by the Russians, and the Russians say that they destroyed a lot of shit there. Okay, so here we are. This is, or on this better map, right here. Let's go back to Ukrainians, who are going to tell us a general, like a summary, which I think they already did. Then they will tell us what happened in the north, which is usually nothing. Then in the northeast, they're going to tell us the Russians shelled them, but they will not say anything about them shelling the Russians. And then they go east, southeast, and south. All right, let's go. The operational situation on the Volyn and Polisia fronts remains much the same as before. There is no evidence that Russia is forming new offensive units in this area. On the Sivershchnya and Slabozanchnya, I'm going to break my mouth, fronts, Russian forces deployed mortars and artillery to fire on more than 20 civilian settlements. Now this is Kupiansk front. The Kupiansk front is Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka, these are the areas where supposedly the Russians are advancing or are successful. This Kupiansk is right here, just so you know, right here where this little piece is. So Kupiansk is here, then Liman is going to be right here, and then you go to Bakhmut, and then you go to Avdiivka, and then you go to Marinka. All this is Ukrainian defending the Russian attacks, or at least offensive. On the Liman front, Russian forces conducted unsuccessful offensive operations in the vicinity of Nadia, Luhansk Oblast. They conducted an airstrike in the vicinity of Bilohorivka, Luhansk Oblast. And then they shelled in Donetsk and Luhansk. So it's they said they tried to continue their offensive in Liman area and then shelling. We go back to Bakhmut. Ukraine's defense forces successfully repelled Russian assaults to the south of Klishchivka. Remember, they used to say that Bakhmut was already, you know, almost encircled. That's what, what's his name? I can't, not Sherevati. They usually present him now, because they don't present Zaluzny anymore, as the commander-in-chief of the ground troops in the Bakhmut area. Not only in the Bakhmut, but he usually comes over there and visits, or commands. And he, I can't remember his name. He said that they're attacking on the front, north and south, on the flanks, I'm sorry. And then Bakhmut will be surrounded, Jesus Christ, surrounded by his forces. I'm going to show you where that supposedly occurs. So this is right here in Artemovsk, where they call it Artemovsk. The Russians call it Artemovsk, the Ukrainians call it Bakhmut, right here. It is true that the Russians had like this here and like this here, but now in the past month and a half, the Ukrainians indeed, even according to the Russians, pushed them back here. The Ukrainian claimed that they actually are deeper in here, and then they will encircle them here, and then they're going to be done. So let's see what the Russians are saying here. Units of the Yuk battle group struck Ukrainian troops. Russian forces thwarted 4 Ukrainian attacks right here. And here is again shelling struck Ukrainian troops, and here probably an ammunition depot was destroyed. In the Liman area, which is north, we didn't cover that one, is right here, Liman. Let's see what happened here. The Yuk battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine's 100th Territorial Defense Brigade. Here's probably a drone. 1 drone down. 10. Cheese oh pizza, I've never heard this one. I heard 2 or 5, 10 drones down here. Interesting, if true, right? Units of the Yuk battle group struck Ukrainian troops. Here is dangerous here because the Ukrainians could be, if they're here located, could be surrounded. So let's go to Bakhmut and see what which is right here, what the Ukrainians are saying. They repelled Russian assault to the south of Klishchivka. Russian forces conducted airstrikes on areas in around Kurdimivka, Bilahora, and New York, Donetsk Oblast. Over 10 settlements came under Russian fire. We're going to go Avdiivka, south of Bakhmut. On the Avdiivka front, Ukraine's defense forces successfully repelled Russian air and artillery-supported assaults, that's an attack, right? In the vicinity of Avdiivka, Russian forces shelled over 15 civilian settlements. So let's see where that happened. So Avdiivka is right here. It's in bad shape. Look how this looks. That means the Russians could encircle it. Let's see what they say. The Yuk battle group successfully repulsed all attacks by Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. So according to the Russians, the Ukrainians are attacking and they're repulsing. According to these results here, they say no, they are successfully repelled. The Russians support assaults. So again, as I said, they rarely overlap. Let's see what happened here. Ukrainian forces fired 26 152mm shells at the city. Russian air defense shot down 4 Ukrainian drones. And here is our shelling of civilians infrastructure, according to the Russians. That's how they usually say it. I want to spare you from that. And here we're going to move to Marinka. Let's see what the Russians are saying. The EU battle group successfully repelled all attacks, again, by Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. So remember, they say that the Ukrainians are attacking. Let's see, what is Uhledar or Vuhledar? Units of the Vostok battle group struck Ukrainian troops. I've never seen this here, right here. Let's see what happened here. Russian forces destroyed the Ukrainian P-18 surveillance and targeting radar. And then again here, the same thing here. Let's go to the Ukrainians and see what they say about Marinka. Marinka front. Ukrainian forces are continuing to hold back Russian forces near Marinka. So they say the Russians are attacking. I mean, these guys. The Russians shelled more than 10 civilian settlements. On the Shakhtarsk front, Russian forces conducted air strike near Staromayorsk, Donetsk Oblast, and shelled Vodian, Vuhledar, and Blahodanye. This is what I already mentioned right here, but these three, this is Vuhledar. Let's see what's going here. You see, Staromayorsk is right here. Russian forces thwarted the activity of a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. The Vostok battle group supposedly successfully repulsed an attack by the Ukrainian assault unit of the 35th Separate Marine Brigade using air and artillery strikes, which ended up wiping out 16 Ukrainian soldiers and 2 armored vehicles. Oh my, look at these guys. Units of the Vostok battle group struck Ukrainian troops. And we move here to the Zaporozhye Oblast, where supposedly the mighty Ukrainian offensive occurs. So let's start with the Ukrainians. Russian forces on the Zaporozhye and Kherson fronts are focusing their efforts on preventing Ukrainian forces from advancing. Finally, you say something. They shelled over 15 civilian settlements. How they prevent Ukrainian forces from advancing, shelling 15 civilian settlements? Anyway, don't ask questions, right? Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense forces are continuing to conduct offensive operations on the Melitopol and Berdiansk fronts, where they are consolidating their positions, deploying artillery to take out Russian military targets, and engaging in counter-battery fire. Over the course of the day, Ukrainian aircraft carried out, this is the last summary of this article, but I'm going to go to the Russians and see what they say about this, because the Ukrainians did not say much. Let's see what's going on here. Russian air defense shot down 3 Ukrainian drones. Russian air defense shot down 3 Ukrainian drones and one Ukrainian drone. Let's see here what's going on here. Russian forces thwarted the activity of Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. Remember, this is the Berdiansk Melitopol right here. Berdiansk Melitopol front. And I don't see anything, and I don't hear anything, hey, they advance or anything like that. I mean, you could say, well, would the Russians say that? Let's see what's going on here. The Vostok battle group hammered Ukrainian troops using air and artillery strikes. The same thing here. And the same thing here. Okay, not much. We're going to move here to Kherson. In Kherson, usually the Ukrainians just shell the Russian civilian infrastructure. That's how the Russians report it. And then sometimes they thwart some Ukrainians trying to cross the Dnieper River and get a foothold across the river. Let's see what's going on here. The Dnieper battle group struck deployment points of Ukrainian troops. They were killed and wounded. And here, the same thing. And let's pick one of these guys. Ukrainian forces shelled the village's civilian infrastructure using cannon artillery. I told you, that's why I don't want to waste your time with that kind of, the same here. This is according to the Russians. So let's go back and get the final countdown of the German band Europe. Over the course of the day, Ukrainian aircraft carried out 6 airstrikes where Russian military personnel, weapons and equipment were concentrated. 1 strike on Russian air defense systems and 1 on a Russian command post. Units of Ukraine's rocket forces and artillery struck a Russian command post, 1 cluster of military personnel, 5 field artillery units, 1 fuel and lubricant storage point, and 1 electronic warfare system. So that's the update. Finally, these guys worked hard, and so did I. Whew. All right, now I know a little bit to open up the larynx. Anyway, as I said, these guys rarely overlap in whatever they do over there. The Russians are advancing on the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Marinka. These guys in the, what's the name of those two weasel towns? I don't want to, it's Berdiansk and Melitopol in Zaporozhye Oblast. And the rest is both sides claim the other side hits civilians. Very important, that attack on that airfield. I made a video a minute ago regarding that, because that's the only place, according to Forbes, where the Ukrainians could use the Sukhoi 24th to attach the Storm Shadow missiles and conduct attacks on Russian positions. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.